Today, I'm going to talk about this rotavirus initiative, which is a collaborative project with Zoetis, veterinary practitioners, and a lot of farms involved here in this project. This is designed to develop tools to study rotaviruses, which are recently linked to a lot of fall diarrhea cases in central Kentucky. So I will begin with some introduction, kind of background. I was looking for some epidemiological data for Rota A infections for the last few years. Unfortunately, there is no much epidemiological studies. So this is what I can pull it from the web, and this is around 2016, a small study done, and this shows this is a small sample size with 126 samples, and this shows that about 86% of foals less than 6 months of age are affected with equine rotavirus A. Hereafter, I will be referring to ERVA. Okay. So, rotavirus, as mentioned before, it's a major cause of fall diarrhea. It's transmitted via fecal oral route. And without timely intervention and aggressive therapy, it is causing severe fatal diarrhea in foals less than 3 months of age. So this virus has a double-stranded RNA genome with a lot of proteins, about 11 protein segments, and each protein segments have designated function. And different protein components are important in immune response, especially the VP7 and VP4, like Dr. Baldrige mentioned. And these are purely immunogenic proteins. And according to these two proteins, there are different genotypes, there are 7G genotypes and 6P genotypes. So, like mentioned before, the G3P12 and G14P12 are the most prevalent types that is circulating here in central Kentucky. And this ERVA causes colic, dehydration, electrolyte derangements, anorexia, depression, and high volume watery diarrhea, which can be from yellow watery to hemorrhagic diarrhea with huge viral loads. So mostly the fatal diarrhea is seen in foals less than 3 months of age, and diarrhea with and without colic are seen in older foals that are 3 to 4 months of age. So a little bit about the strains of equine rotavirus A. And like I said, G3 genotype is the dominant one since 1975. And this Zoetis developed inactivated G3 genotype monovalent vaccine is the vaccine that we are giving to pregnant mares at months 8, 9, and 10. But we are seeing a lot of G14 genotypes in early 2000s, right around 2005, an increasing prevalence of G14 genotypes are there. And in the same study, they have shown like around 15.8. And in a paper published in 2018, this has come to around 25%. Okay, so these G3 and G14 strains are isolated from sick foals, which are around 3 to 4 months of age. And these both genotypes can infect the same animal. So these are seen, some foals have both G3 and G14 genotypes. So this initiative is to address some questions that are being unanswered for a long time. So the first one, we need to understand better about the type of immunity generated in this G3 vaccinated mares. So what level of virus neutralizing antibodies are produced and how far are they protective? So, and the third question is whether these G3 vaccination derived maternal antibodies in foals are they effective in neutralizing other diverse strains, like G3 monovalent vaccine is the one we are giving, whether it can neutralize G14s, how far it can protect, and or any other serotypes that are mismatched to the vaccine strain. So the second area that we are trying to answer is what are the genetic variations in the rotavirus isolates? So there are a lot of groups of rotavirus recently became. So what are the genetic variants? Now everybody knows how the virus works. There are different variants, for example, for COVID, Delta variants, Gamma variants. Okay, so likewise in rotavirus also there could be some genetic variants. Okay, and what are the shedding patterns in the mares and foals? And what are the shedding patterns? Is it different in normal mares and foals, subclinic animals, etc.? And third one, what factors are associated with disease? Are there any immune factors, any host factors such as gut microbiome, environmental factors, etc.? So for this, there were two aims, like I said. So for aim one, it's mainly to test the immune responses generated in these vaccinated mares. So we are planning to develop a rotavirus neutralization assay to test what level of maternal derived antibodies are there and what is the level that is protective and how long can they stay, and also whether they are effective in neutralizing other strains which mismatch to the vaccine strain. So this is we are planning to use a fluorescent based assay. So fluorescent focused neutralization assay, that's the name of the assay. And it is little different from the cell based assay. It's more sensitive, robust, and high throughput, so which will help to obtain a profile of antigenic diversity that's happening in these Kentucky host populations, and it will help to evaluate the antibody protection, the antibody titers, and which will help us to optimize the vaccination regime according to the ERVA variability and antibody efficacy. So for this initiative, the challenge was to collect samples. So Dr. Emma Adam, she took lead in this part, and she did a wonderful job contacting all the veterinary practitioners, hospitals, diagnostic labs here, and she enrolled around 5 farms with 60 mares, and excuse me. And then we started collecting samples in the pre-foaling season and post-foaling season. So from the pregnant mares, we collected fecal swab and serum before each vaccination. So that's it before 8th month, 9th month, and 10th month. Okay, and then after the foaling, we also collected colostrum and milk along with fecal swab and blood from these mares, and also collected blood and fecal swab from the foals. So after foaling, we collected these samples every 2 weeks for the first 2 months, and then after 2 months, we started collecting it every month. Okay. So the progress we made so far is like we have this paired mare full samples. So we have around 938 sera. Fecal swab is around 892, and colostrum 46 and milk 55. So total, the numbers are little started here. So it's around 1931, a little less than 2000 samples. So that's a lot of samples that's waiting for us to do all the assays. So in the second table, you can see the breakdown of all these numbers according to different categories from mares and samples, mares and foals. So the second area we are trying to answer is whether is the vaccine protective enough? Are there any variants present? So in this first cartoon, I like the cartoon very much. It's like a vaccine is trying to control all the viruses, and then some of the virus, they are trying to escape from that immune pressure and running with a baton, and you can see there's some viruses escaping. So the same scenario going on with the COVID-19 vaccination, as you know. So, oh, sorry. So in this right side, I have a figure. This is from a paper published in Argentina. I like that figure very much. It's a nice study, and here you can see on the y-axis the percentage of cases across the years from 1981 to 2010, and this describes the different genotypes that were seen in circulation in that place. Okay, so the purple shows G mix, which could be anything like G3, G14, and it's a mix of different genotypes. And then the red shows G14. I think it's right higher. And so if you see until 1996, you don't see much G14 genotypes over there, okay? But after 1996, you see a lot of G14s coming up, and the proportion is above the same or more than G3. So that shows the genetic variants are more in circulation, regardless of the location. So such a study, we need it over here to see what sort of variants are there in circulation to study the vaccine efficacy. So for that, we are trying to develop a next-gen sequencing platform to study which genotype is more prevalent in falls in central Kentucky. So by next generation sequencing, we would be able to derive whole genome sequences of circulating ERVA strains. And this is the same thing what we did for Rota B. That's how we knew that Rota, it's not Rota A, it's Rota B that's causing the problem. Okay. So this will also help to find what genetic differences are there between the genotypes, between G3 and G14 or within G3, and also identify any other viral or bacterial pathogens involved in the infection. So sequencing is not all. Sequence will give an indication that such and such nucleic acid is there. So we don't have much in our hands other than the starting material. So we need to isolate the virus. So for that, we are collecting fecal samples or fecal swab, and virus isolation is very important to do the further characterization or functional assays. So which is more important to understand the mutations and genetic differences. And also, if we need to do some vaccine modifications, we need to have something in hand. Okay, so we make these fecal suspensions, clarify, and do high-speed ultracentrifugation to separate the virus. And then we use that material to infect the cell cultures. So that's going on, and we use MA104 cells and human colon carcinoma cells for doing that. And so this is something as far we have, reached in this project. I'm sorry I don't have a data to show. We got a little bit distracted with the Rota B and couldn't do much on this one. So, so I'm sure that this is a very fascinating work, and we will get some interesting data which will help the equine industry to understand more about the current trends of this infection landscape in central Kentucky. And I'm sure this study will give new directions to devise new strategies for therapeutics and prophylactics in horses. So, So yeah, this is our lab, and at Gluck Center, Dr. Lee, Dr. Wang, Dr. Adam, and Dr. Uprati, he's the one who processed all the samples, collected so we just kept lots of blood and fecal swab. So we process aliquot, keep the aliquots, and at the end, we would like to acknowledge all the collaborators that helped in this project from Gluck Center, diagnostic labs, OITIS, a lot of veterinarians, and I'm sorry if I left somebody out, but there are lots of people involved in this. So thank you all. Thank you for your attention.